Good morning, everyone. This is week 12 of cost management. This will be my second attempt to record this. I didn't have my microphone on and couldn't figure out how to put it on. So this week, what we're doing is an online class. As I mentioned in the Blackboard post, we'll be going through three different types of exercises here in this particular class in relation to cost management. In this cost management lesson, what we'll be looking at is whether or not we could sell under our cost if we want to buy a specific business, or should we wish to close during the off season. So these are the things that we'll be looking at and how they relate to our hospitality industry. So as we probably know at this point, cost management has much to do with how we assign costs to our revenue generating areas. And we've discussed this concept in regards to contributory income several times already. I think that would have been the second or third week. What we'll be doing now is looking at cost management in a more relative business level aspect. And we'll be looking at things such as direct costs and indirect costs, which we've already been familiarized with. An example would be your food and beverage inventory would be a direct cost to your dining room, or your housekeeping labor would be a direct cost to your accommodation revenue. Those are easy to assign to an individual area. Indirect costs, we use different strategies to assign these. We have used already, and this would have been week 3 or 4 material, that we assigned indirect costs like human resources, depreciation, marketing, maintenance as either a percentage of revenue or a percentage of square footage. Now we'll be looking at the 3 different items that I mentioned before: selling below the total cost of an item, deciding whether to stay open or close during those slower months, which has a huge impact on our resort business, and then also deciding whether a business is worth buying. We'll look into this final one. It's more about talking about the relation of fixed cost versus variable cost and how that can change if you have better years or worse years. So if you had to weather a pandemic, how would that look? Or if you were, as an example, opening up a new restaurant in a very big tourism Ontario town this summer, you would do very well, and how that growth and how the difference between your variable cost percentage and fixed cost percentage would tie into that. So those are the 3 things that we'll be looking at, and we'll start with a minimum price scenario. So if you are a hotel, you have a fixed cost per room sold of $100 per night and a variable cost of $50 per night. So fixed cost, $100 per room, regardless of if you sell or not actually, and a variable cost of $50 per night. What is the minimum price we should charge for the room based on the financial results of this sale? So this is also not us taking into any kind of consideration that hopefully they'll eat at the restaurant or buy a golf package or go to the spa. So what most people would probably guess is D, anything above 150, and it does make sense by just looking at these 2 numbers. Fixed cost of $100, $50 variable cost. Instead, the correct answer is B. So if a hotel is a fixed cost per room sold of $100 per night and a variable cost of $50 per night, what is the minimum? Any amount above 50. Because what we are looking for is something to pay an amount towards those fixed costs, because we will have that amount of charge regardless. So if we do not sell the room and it sits empty, the hotel still loses the amount of fixed cost, $100. But if the hotel sells the room for, as an example, $51, then they lose the amount of fixed costs plus the variable costs less the revenue. So they have $100 of fixed costs. They add the variable cost. So it's going to cost us $151 or $150 for this room. We subtract our revenue, which in this scenario, if we sell it for $51, is $99. If we sit empty and do not sell anything, it costs us $100. Anything we sell the room more than $50 will take away from that $100 fixed cost. So now we're only losing $99. Now at $99, this might not be really worth it or not. because you're only really saving $1, but they also may spend some additional revenues at the food and beverage options, a spa, a golf course, retail, parking, activities, casino. Once we get the butts in the beds or the butts in the seats, then we have another opportunity to produce more income. This is what we call the multiplier effect. Here's another way of looking at this. So can we sell below total cost? So in this particular question, we need to know about both fixed and variable. And variable is always a bit of a guessing game. We have an idea. So we will assign that amount based on what we think. It could go a little bit higher or lower. So if your variable costs are covered and a contribution towards fixed cost is made, selling below total cost can be considered. So in this example, we have a catering company that rents its facilities. So the annual fixed costs are developed this way. So it's been told that it's $146,000 a year, or about $400 per day. We know that we have a variable cost, and we're going to say that's 60%. So by saying it's 60%, and that's a pretty good amount, we're saying, well, if it's a catering company, we have to rent the facility. The fixed costs are going to be the rentals and the lights and the hydro and the marketing, the website, and blah, 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 blah. The variable cost of 60% probably accounts for 30% of that 60% being for food and beverage, and the other 30% of that 60 being for labor. So that's a pretty good guess. And so we have a catering job of 60 people, and they want to pay us $10 each per person. So if we take a look at how much we would be incurring if we take this small catering job, we look at our revenue, which is 60 times $10 each, which is a total of 600. We subtract our variable costs, so 60% of that $600, which is 360, leaving us with $240 for this job. We know we have this fixed daily cost of $400, but we only made $240. So we would now have an operating loss of a negative $160. If it's in brackets, that's always showing that it's negative. And then the question would be, even though we're losing money, do you think we should take this job of $160? Well, there's a bunch of things that we have to think about there. We can offset $240 of our regular fixed cost, which means that we are paying towards it. We're not covering it, we're not making money, but we are not losing as much. And this is where you have to make the decision if it's going to be worth it. So if I'm making $240 of the required $400, am I also paying my staff and keeping them employed and keeping them happy? Yes. Am I maybe filling up a week, or maybe if I have a really good catering event, will I be able to perhaps book more people in the future? Maybe. If this is the 7th catering job this week and my staff have plenty of hours, they're now at the point that they're getting overworked, maybe this is the opportunity where we say, no, we're okay. I think we all need a break. So it's really dependent on your scenario in the business. If you are hurting for business and you need money, then you would take this 100%. If you have already had a busy week, month, year, and this is just going to be a little bit difficult for your staff and your outfit to continue with, then that would be the point where you decide maybe we don't take it. So what if the numbers change from 60 to 35 people just 24 hours before? Hopefully you would have a contract stating the numbers can't change and they would still pay for 60 people. But let's assume that they can't. So 35 people at $10 each is $350. 60% of that $350 is $210. So that's your variable cost. So $350 minus $210 will give you $140 of contribution. So our fixed cost of $400 minus our contribution, we're still losing $260. We're only putting $140 towards it. And then at this point, we really have to decide what are we willing to do, for what's the amount of money that we're still willing to wake up and go to work and work for. And again, we'd have to relate it to all of those other non-financial things. Are my staff happy? Do we have the equipment? Do we have the time? Are we overworked? Do they need hours? That kind of stuff. We also have to take in consideration the reputation that taking underpriced or discounts may have. So in the world of Airbnbs, in the world of hotels.com, Trivago, and all these different things, hotels have now gotten the perception that there's always a discount. And if you call and book a room, there's always a better price somewhere. So it's kind of, you're blowing up your pricing model, the integrity of your pricing model. So if you consistently provide guests with a substantially reduced price, the perception is that the hotel is only worth the discounted price. It's not worth the average daily rate that you want to post. And then therefore it might be hard for you to keep getting people at that price level. So sometimes we got to be careful with what kind of discounts that we take, because it does set this perception or this image that we are not worth what we regularly charge. Next one is, should we close during the off season? So in this particular scenario, we have 10 months of being open. We have 2 months of our slow season, and then showing a total over the entire year what's going on. So the operation was generating money for 10 of the months and losing money in the last 2. And we're going to consider this being January and February. Most of our resorts do well up until about Christmas or so in the new year. And then it's like that mid-January, February, and early March that they really struggle. Often we've had conferences and weddings and other things try to take place in that time. But that's the most difficult time to fill in our province, in Canada, in our weather climate. Those aren't fantastic times. So often you'll see many of the resorts will close down or will go into like a reduced working level. Some do very well, like a Deerhurst has done really well in staying open, but there's other places that will just close down, and it's also hard to find staff. So here you're looking at 10 months. Their variable sales costs are only 20% of sales revenue. Their fixed costs are $21,000 per month. And you see here over the 10 months, they have a 20% fixed cost or variable cost of $375 is $75,000. Their fixed cost is $21,000 per month, so $210,000 over 10 months. And they're making, at the end of the day or the end of the 10-month period, $90,000. In the other 2 months, you'll see they're not really bringing any sales. They have a very low variable cost due to those sales numbers, but they have still a very high fixed cost because it's still $21,000 a month. So they're only bringing in $15,000. They're spending $45,000. They're losing $30,000 over those 2 months. And you'll see the total numbers on the right-hand side, the effect of those 2 months on the business. So they're only making about $60,000. So then the next question is, well, if you're losing $30,000 over 2 months, normally they'd say, well, we better close down. That doesn't make any sense. Why would we stay open for that? So let's take a look at what that would do. So if we were to close down for those 2 months, we would make that $90,000. Then we have to keep in mind, though, we're still paying that $21,000 for our fixed costs. So that's $42,000. And our net income, if we close down for 2 months, is $48,000 now. 90 minus 42. Our net income has been reduced from 60 to 48 with the effect of us being closed for 2 months. So should we wish to actually do the best financially as we can, we would remain open. Even though we're losing $30,000, it's a difference of $12,000 extra we still get to keep. Because losing $30,000 over 2 months is better than losing $42,000 over 2 months. And that has the other effects as well. So during that time, you are maintaining your staffing levels or some of your staffing. You're not losing people. So if you say, hey, I will hire you for 10 months, but 2 months of the year you can't work, the majority of those staff won't save enough money to just do nothing for 2 months. They will most likely have to go find another job. And then when you start back up in 2 months' time, they might not come back. They already found a job that's full-time and they don't want to lose it. You might have to hire new staff then. And when you hire new staff, there's training time. There's might be some close down costs, so you have to wrap everything up. You're throwing out food. Maybe you're putting like just wood over windows and stuff like that to really kind of make the place nice and tight. But it all costs. Plus, when you start up again, then you'd have to take down all that stuff, buy your new food, clean, and get ready again. Sometimes it's just better to stay open. And then the final one is, what restaurant or business should we buy? So I just gave you a quick example. Again, like I said, I don't see us being really in that scenario where we are going to be buying a full restaurant anytime soon. Although, that being said, this can be looked at from a piece of equipment viewpoint as well. So a piece of equipment that maybe has a higher cost, higher fixed cost in which to operate it, but it has a low variable cost. So you are being more efficient. Either way, we're going to take a look at how really the effect of having high variable costs versus low variable costs can affect a business in both good times and bad. So, restaurant example, we have the same clientele, we have the same size, and the same asking price. There's $1 million in sales revenue, of which we keep $100,000. So we have $100,000 net income, which is 10%. So we're going to assume a 10% increase in sales revenue for the next year. But first, let's take a look at what our original view would look like with both $1 million in sales. So we have Restaurant A and Restaurant B. They're both promoting here a sales revenue of $100,000 or $1 million. And we know that we are going to make 10%. So this is already determined. If they have a variable cost of 50%, then their fixed cost is 40. 100% minus 15, 40, which is 90, equals 10. And then over here, 100% minus your 30% variable cost, therefore fixed must be 60, again, is your 10%. So this is just showing us the breakdown between the two. Why it matters: variable costs are tied to sales. With more sales is more cost. With less sales is less cost. And fixed remain the same regardless of the business level. So here we're looking, and we need to decide what would do better for us if we have a 10% increase in sales. So let's see. Okay, well, now we have $1.1 million in sales. That's a 10% increase. Our fixed costs remain the same, $400,000 and $600,000. Our percentages changed because our fixed costs remained at $400,000 and $600,000. Our percentages stay the same for variable costs, though. So here we're making 50% variable costs because it moves up and down, like I said, the sales number with our revenue. So now it's 50% of 1.1, which is $550,000. Fixed costs remain the same of 400, total cost of 950, and we actually end up making $150,000. Great. Restaurant B, same thing. Variable costs stay the same at 30. 30% of $1.1 million is $330. Fixed cost of $600, which is $930. We end up making $20,000 more by 170. So it's $170,000. So when the business is good, when you have sales increases, the low variable cost is better because it's tied to sales. So for every dollar more we earn with Restaurant A, we're paying 50 cents of it. With every dollar more with Restaurant B, we only pay 30 cents. Now, so obviously, Restaurant B would be a better investment in good times. But then let's say, I don't know, something strange like a pandemic were to happen and you lose sales. So let's just see how a 10% decrease from our original $1 million sales revenue would affect our business. So if we have a 10% decrease in sales, we go from 900,000 or $1 million to 900,000 for both. Our variable cost percentages are still the same, 50 and 30%. So 50% here is 450. 270 is 30% of 900. And our fixed costs remain the same dollar amount. So it's 400 and 600. But what we end up seeing is that of our $900,000, we get to keep 50 in Restaurant A, and in Restaurant B, we get to keep 30. And the way that works is that because our variable cost is tied directly to sales revenue and we have a high variable cost, the less we sell, the less we spend, more so than the other restaurant. So they have $600,000. They need to make $600,000 as a fixed cost regardless, whereas we only need to make $400 in restaurant A. That has an impact. So as sales decrease, what you will see is that the higher variable cost and lower fixed costs will help you more. As sales increase, the lower variable cost and higher fixed will help you more. So that gives you an idea of just those two different styles of restaurants. Now you can put that to anything, a piece of equipment, a vehicle. A vehicle could be, okay, well, the fixed cost will be our payment plans over the year, but our variable cost is fuel efficiency, right? So do I pick a more expensive vehicle that is more efficient on fuel, or a less expensive one, but it's not very efficient on fuel? So you can look at this in many different aspects of our life. It's all more or less the same. What is the variable cost per use in relation to fixed cost, the payment of that particular restaurant, business, piece of equipment, vehicle, you name it. Okay. So then what you will do is you will go into under week 11, week 12 under assignments. You will have an in-class assignment that looks like this. So this is the Monday one for week 12. And what you'll be doing is that you will be completing, I'm just going to remove that. I'll zoom in a little bit less than that. Ooh. Okay. So what we have here is we are completing the below questions for the fourth quarter, assuming you are closed. So some of the costs will still need to be paid regardless if we close. There are things that don't go away. So those are our fixed costs. Determine if you need to stay open or close for the fourth quarter, and a quarter is 3 months long. So a quarter is a financial term, and sports term as well, I suppose, but it's a financial term. The year of 12 months is made up of 4 quarters, and each quarter is 3 months long. So what you'll first do is you'll find out the totals for all 4 quarters, because we need to base it off something. So we're going to look at the totals for everything. So some basic statements will be, or some basic formulas will be adding up all of our sales revenue. And again, please use your formulas and also use your copy and paste, because that matters. And then here we're going to find out what our gross margin is, which is our sales revenue minus our cost of sales. Okay, and do that for all these as well. I'm not going to do everything here for you, but I'm just going to show you a couple lines to give you an idea. Then we're also just going to do totals for all these columns as well. So this is, again, a sum statement which you can copy and paste all the way down of all of the wages and expense labor. And same sum statement. You can add them up individually, but this is just easier. The sum of all of the costs going this way. And your net income will be your gross margin, subtract your total operating costs. And there you have that. I'm sorry, that's too fast. I don't think so, though. You guys are smart. So once we have all those numbers, then we'll have an idea of how much money do we make when we're open all year long. We'll know our total operating expenses, our total net incomes, and all of them, what we need to know to understand in a full year of operation, this is what we can do. Now we have to make some guesses as far as what we think the cost it will be for us to close down. So this is going to be, if the fourth quarter is closed, what are we going to put in this column? Now I grade these out because there will be no sales. There will be no cost of sales because we have no sales, therefore no gross margin. So we don't need to worry about these because we're closed. Rather, what we have to do is what is going to be our new expenses. So we have all of the expenses and what we think they are going to be down here. So $3,500 is a fixed cost of key personnel who would have been kept on the payroll even if the operations were closed. So probably the general manager or some of your management might stay on. You'll still pay them. Or maybe there's a maintenance man or something along those lines. So you're just going to put in your $3,500 there. There's a bunch. I won't go through them all. Supplies, the cost varies directly with sales revenue, which means if there's no sales, there's no supplies. Half of the quarterly, I need to change that. Half of the quarterly expense. Advertising cost is fixed. So the rest of the cost is variable. So half. So I look at advertising, it's $900. Well, half of that is fixed. So I'm still paying $450 to maintain my website. Even if closed for 3 months, the restaurant still requires some heating. This is estimated to cost $200 a month. So remember, a quarter is 3 months. So you still have to heat the place for $200 a month. There are other ones. I won't go through all of them. Some are reduced 50%. This one's reduced 75%. Remember, when I'm actually asking for a reduction, I want you to show me what the new cost will be, not the amount of the reduction. So if I'm reducing something by 75%, I want to see what the remaining 25% is, because that's what I actually have to pay. And then some things you'll still have to pay, like interest and rent. So what you'll do is you'll come up with a new total for operating costs. And then from there, you'll go through and you will add up all the totals if you are actually closed for the 4th. So what you're going to do is add in the first quarter, the second quarter, and the third quarter for this one alone. And over on the cost, you'll add in the first, the second, the third quarter, and the new 4th if you are closed, which is this G column. I don't want the $16,200 for wages because we're closed. I want the $3,500 for that quarter because we know we're closing down and we're just going to have a skeleton staff. So you can see that there's a difference of, what is that, $13,000 or so between the two different wages and salary total expenses. So you go through and do that for all of these. You'll come up with a new total operating expense and net income. And what you'll be able to do is tell between this one here, if you're completely open all 12 months, or if you're only open for 9 of the months, 3 of the quarters, what's the net income amount? What's the difference between the two? And then once you are able to understand that stuff, then from here, you tell me 2 reasons why you think you should stay open and or closed. Okay, so I want you to go through here, look at all the financials, come up with first say you're going to open or close, and then tell me exactly why you think that makes sense. And that's going to be a good portion of your grade. Okay, so go through and do that. Have fun with it. This is something that we would probably look at when you are actually in business and say, hey, we got, it could be not even closing for an entire 3-month period, but it might be, let's close on Sundays and Mondays, something along those lines. It's the same relevance. It's the same style of stuff. You know, even if you close Sunday, Monday and you're a retail store and you say, well, people don't shop Sunday night at retail stores or Mondays, you're still going to have to pay for your rent and your lease and hydro and all of those things. So this can be applied to many different scenarios. We look at resorts because, well, we're in hotel resort. So take a look at that. I wish you luck, and please submit this by the end of the day.